Rae Bennett never expected her entire life to shift because of a tiny silver key sitting abandoned on the floor of the apartment lobby. She was late again. The strap of her tote bag kept sliding off her shoulder, her curls were frizzing from the summer humidity, and her hands were full with the iced coffee she barely had time to grab. As she dashed into the West 82nd Street building where she delivered groceries for a living, she skidded to a halt just inches from slipping on something metallic, a key. It was sleek, heavy, engraved with the number PH1. Her eyes widened. Penthouse. Rae looked around, expecting anyone to be frantically searching the area. But the polished marble lobby was empty except for the sleepy doorman, who barely looked up from his crossword puzzle. "Hey, I just found this on the floor," she said, walking over. "Penthouse key," the doorman squinted at it. "That belongs to Mr. Kingsley. He must have dropped it on his way out. He never uses the front elevator, though he has a private one upstairs. I can hold on to it." Rae hesitated. Something tugged at her gut. No offense, but maybe I should return it myself. I'm heading up that way to deliver groceries anyway. The doorman shrugged. "Suit yourself. Penthouse is the top floor. Good luck." The private elevator was sleek and silent, and Rae felt like she didn't belong the entire ride up. When the doors slid open, she stepped straight into a hallway lined with original art and soft lighting. Her sneakers squeaked against the polished floor. The penthouse door loomed at the end, black, modern, and intimidating. Rae exhaled and knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Still nothing. She turned to leave but paused. What if the guy was still inside and just couldn't hear her? Curiosity got the better of her, so she slid the key into the lock. It turned easily. "Hello," she called out, stepping inside just a little. "Sorry, I found your key in the lobby." "I didn't mean to. You broke into my home." The voice was sharp, male, deep, and close. Rae spun around, heart slamming into her ribs. A man stood near the hallway, wearing a white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up and dark tailored slacks. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and barefoot. His dark hair was pushed back and his eyes, cold, piercing steel gray, were fixed on her. I didn't break in," she stammered. "I found the key downstairs. I knocked twice. No one answered." He walked toward her, every step controlled. "So you used the key and just let yourself in?" "I was trying to be helpful," Rae said quickly. "I thought maybe you were home and didn't hear me. Look, I'll go. Sorry, wait." He stopped short, staring at her. "What's your name?" "Rae." "Rae Bennett." He nodded slowly, then looked down at the key in her hand. "You're lucky I don't call security." "Wouldn't they just tell you I was trying to return your key?" He quirked an eyebrow at that, then finally reached out and took the key from her fingers. His hand brushed hers warm, calloused from work, which surprised her. He didn't look like someone who had ever lifted anything heavier than a wine glass. "I'm Kellan Kingsley," he said after a beat. "And yes, this is my place." Rae mentally blinked. Kingsley? As in Kingsley Capital. She'd heard that name before, but she didn't expect the guy behind it to be. "Well, this." "Okay, Mr. Kingsley," she said, backing toward the door. "Key returned, crisis averted, I'll leave you to your billionaire penthouse life." "I never said I was a billionaire," he said, lips twitching slightly. "I didn't say you were," she shot back. He tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle. "You're the grocery girl," she bristled. "I prefer delivery assistant." "You always this mouthy delivery assistant?" "Only when people accuse me of breaking into their homes." For a second, silence stretched between them, tense but strangely electric. Then something shifted in his eyes. "You hungry?" "What?" "I was about to make breakfast before I realized my key was missing. You want some?" She stared at him. "Are you offering me eggs as an apology?" "I don't apologize," he said, already walking toward the sleek open kitchen. "But the eggs are free range." Rae should have left. She really should have. But her stomach growled and curiosity burned hotter than her better judgment, so she followed him. The eggs were perfect. So was the marble kitchen island she sat at and the view of the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. "So what exactly do you do, Kellan Kingsley?" Rae asked, sipping the mimosa he'd casually poured her like this was totally normal. He glanced over, leaning against the counter. Investment management, real estate, private equity, so money, he shrugged. Something like that. You don't sound thrilled. It pays well. No offense, but this place looks like it pays more than well. He gave her a look but didn't deny it. For a moment, Rae just watched him. He moved with this quiet confidence like he owned everything he touched. But there was something else underneath it, something tired, guarded. Well, thanks for the eggs, she said, sliding off the stool, and the mimosa, and for not calling the cops. You're welcome, he said easily. You're not what I expected. Yeah, people say that a lot. He walked her to the door. You work around here often, sometimes. Why, thinking of losing another key, he smiled, small but real. Maybe. She gave him a mock salute and walked back into the elevator, heart weirdly thudding in her chest. 2 days later, her delivery schedule changed. Rae found herself delivering groceries to the penthouse again. This time, the key card was already waiting at the front desk for her. Inside, Kellan was on the phone, pacing in his office. He waved her in and pointed toward the kitchen. Put it on the counter, he mouthed. She did. Then turned to leave. He hung up. Stay, she narrowed her eyes. I'm not a house pet. I meant for lunch. Rae rolled her eyes. You always invite strangers to eat with you. No, you're the first. She stared at him. Then slowly walked back to the kitchen. You're lucky I like eggs, she said. He looked at her, really looked at her. I think I'm starting to get lucky in a lot of ways. The third time Rae delivered groceries to the penthouse, Kellan was waiting at the door before she could even ring the bell. You're early, she said, lifting the 2 reusable bags from her arms. You're late, he countered, taking one of the bags and stepping aside to let her in. I had to deal with a cranky old woman on the 5th floor who accused me of stealing her bananas. Did you? I should have. They were the good kind. He raised an eyebrow but said nothing, walking ahead of her into the kitchen. Rae followed, glancing around like she always did. Every time she stepped into the penthouse, it felt like walking onto the set of a movie she didn't belong in. But she never said that out loud. She'd already decided she wouldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing how impressive his place was. You ever actually cook with the food you order? She asked, unpacking the bags onto the counter. Sometimes. Define sometimes. Twice this week. She glanced at him. Was one of those times when I was here. The eggs don't count. Not if I did all the talking. He leaned against the counter, watching her. You always this opinionated, only when I'm right, he chuckled quietly. It was the first time she'd heard that sound from him, low and genuine, like it had surprised even him. As Rae placed a bundle of fresh herbs into the fridge, she noticed a stack of photos clipped together on the granite island. They weren't glossy or posed, just black and white prints of buildings. Some mid-construction, some with scaffolding, others abandoned entirely. What are these? She asked, nodding toward them. Kellan reached for the photos, hesitating just a beat before answering. Developments I'm considering. Most are in early stages. She picked one up. The building was half-finished, skeletal against a cloudy sky. This one looks like it's seen better days. It hasn't seen any days yet. The city halted the permits 3 years ago. I'm trying to buy it out. You like rescuing lost causes. I like seeing potential in things other people give up on. Rae met his eyes. There was something in the way he looked at the photograph, a quiet intensity, not pride, not greed, just focus, purpose. You ever think about building something for yourself? She asked. He paused, almost imperceptibly. What do you mean? Everything here, she gestured to the penthouse. It's all polished and perfect, but it feels like it was made for someone else. Like you're just borrowing it. He didn't respond right away. Then, maybe I haven't figured out what's mine yet. Rae nodded slowly, setting the photo down. Well, when you do, I hope it includes a kitchen with less marble. Why? Because marble is cold, you need something warmer. Wood, brick. Something that doesn't echo every time you breathe. He stared at her like she'd just said something profound, which was ridiculous because she was talking about countertops. Want to see the roof? He asked suddenly. The roof, it's private. No one else has access. Is that your way of saying come upstairs, I won't murder you? He didn't laugh this time, but his expression changed just a little. You trust me? No, but I'm curious. He took the service stairs instead of the elevator, which surprised her. The rooftop door opened into a space that didn't match the rest of the penthouse at all. There was no sleek modern design, no glass or chrome. Instead, there were wooden beams, a weathered table with mismatched chairs, potted citrus trees along the edges, and most shockingly, a row of raised garden beds filled with herbs and vegetables. Rae blinked. This doesn't feel like you. That's because it is me, he said simply. She turned to him. You built this, piece by piece, started during the pandemic. I needed something that didn't involve screens or spreadsheets. She walked toward the garden beds, running her fingers over the edge of one. You grow your own mint, basil, tomatoes, peppers. Mint's in the corner. You're full of surprises. He came to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off him. You're not exactly predictable either. They stood there in silence for a few moments, the city humming quietly beneath them. A breeze lifted her curls and she looked up at the sky, soft blue, streaked with wisps of white. Why me? She asked suddenly. Out of everyone who probably throws themselves at you, why did you invite me in? He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. Because you didn't treat me like something I bought. She turned to face him. You walked in here and saw me, not the money, not the view, not the last name, just me. I didn't even know who you were, exactly. Something shifted in the air between them. The city sounds faded, the wind stilled, and all that remained was the space between their breaths. I should go, Rae said, stepping back. Kellan nodded but didn't move to stop her. Will you come back? I'm not sure, she said honestly. You're not exactly the easiest person to read. I'll try harder, he said. She gave him a long look. Try being less careful. And then she left, taking the stairs two at a time, her heart pounding for reasons she couldn't name. The next day, there was no delivery scheduled for the penthouse. But when Rae arrived at her apartment after her shift, a small envelope had been slid under her door. No name, no logo. Inside was a single card. One side was blank. The other read dinner, 8 o'clock, dress warm. Below it was a set of coordinates. She stared at it. Then, despite herself, she smiled. Rae followed the coordinates to a quiet block just north of Central Park, where the noise of the city softened and the streetlights glowed low and amber. She wore a navy wool coat and boots, her curls tucked beneath a knit hat. The address pointed to a brownstone with ivy crawling up its brick facade and a wrought iron gate that clicked open the moment she approached. Kellan stood on the front steps, wearing a charcoal overcoat and gloves, his eyes lifting the instant she appeared. The usual intensity in his gaze had shifted, still focused, but less guarded. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. You left coordinates. That's not exactly a casual ask. I didn't want casual, she studied him. What is this place? He gestured for her to follow. My father's old townhouse. He bought it before I was born. Your father still live here? No, there was a pause. Rae didn't ask more. Inside, the air was warmer than she expected. A fire crackled in the living room hearth, and the scent of cedar wood mingled with something savory. The space didn't resemble the penthouse at all here. The furniture was worn but well kept, the floors creaked in places, and the bookshelves sagged slightly under the weight of hardcovers. He led her into a dining room where a small round table was set for two. No caterers, no servers. Just a slow-cooked meal in a cast-iron pot and candles flickering in tall holders that didn't match. You made this, she asked, removing her coat. I did. I'm impressed. You haven't tasted it yet, she smiled as she sat. Why here? He poured her wine before answering. Because this was the first place I ever felt like I belonged. Every deal I've closed, every building I've touched, it all started here. Thought maybe you should see it. She took a sip. So you brought me home. Not exactly, he said. But close. They ate in near silence for a few minutes, the only sounds the clink of silverware and the soft jazz playing from a speaker in the corner. You're not used to letting people in, are you? she said after a while. He didn't flinch. No, is that from the job or just how you've always been? My mother left when I was 7. My father taught me not to expect people to stay. Rae leaned back slightly. That's a hard lesson for a kid. It stuck. She nodded once. What about now? Still expect people to leave. I expect them to want something first. She tilted her head. Do you think I want something? I think you're the first person who hasn't asked for anything at all. Rae set her wine down. That's not entirely true. What do you want? She looked him in the eye. Honesty, realness, no games. You invited me here for a reason. I want to know what it is. He stood, walked over to the fireplace, and leaned one hand against the mantel. I've been in rooms with presidents, signed deals worth hundreds of millions, and never once felt the urge to share anything personal. Then you walked into my life because of a lost key, and suddenly I can't stop thinking about how you'd react to every part of me I usually keep buried. You're not used to being vulnerable. It's not a luxury I've allowed myself. She stood too, arms crossed loosely. Maybe it's not a luxury. Maybe it's just necessary. He turned to face her. I want to stop editing myself around you. I want to say what I mean and not second-guess how it sounds. Then say it. I like you, not because you challenge me or because you're different from anyone I've met. I like you because when I'm around you, I feel like I'm someone worth being. Her breath caught, not because of the words, but because of the way he said them, like they'd cost him something to admit. I wasn't looking for any of this, she said finally. I was just trying to return a lost key. I know. But if you're serious, if this isn't some experiment or distraction, then I need to know you're not going to shut down the second things get real. I won't. She stepped closer, the space between them shrinking with each word. Prove it. He didn't hesitate. He reached into the inside pocket of his coat and pulled out a small, aged photograph. It showed a young boy standing on these very steps, a woman crouched beside him, both smiling at the camera. Rae took it gently, eyes scanning the image. That's her, she asked. He nodded. She left a few months after that, never came back. Rae handed it back slowly. Thank you. I've never shown that to anyone. I'll keep it quiet. I know you will. They stood there for another beat before he exhaled. I want to see where this goes, no shields. No edits. Rae looked toward the fire, then back at him. Then stop planning everything. He raised an eyebrow. You're always in control. You pick the time, the place, the terms. Let me do it next time. You want to plan the next move? I want to see if you can handle not knowing what comes next. His mouth twitched. That sounds dangerous, maybe, but life's more interesting when you're not the one writing the script. He took another step toward her. Then I'll be waiting. Rae nodded once. Good, because I already know what I'm doing with it. And then she turned, picked up her coat, and walked out, leaving him in the warm, old house with the fire still burning and her scent lingering in the air. For once, Kellan didn't try to predict her next move. He just waited. Rae stood on the roof of her building, staring down at the city with a paper bag in one hand and her phone in the other. She didn't text him. She wouldn't. She said she'd plan the next move, and she meant it. She just hadn't expected planning to feel like this, like holding a lit match over a page and deciding whether to drop it or blow it out. The plan was simple. Direct. Hers. She waited until Friday. When he opened the door to the penthouse, he was in a navy sweater and dark jeans, hair still damp from a shower, barefoot again. She held up the bag. Dinner, my way. He stepped aside, nodding once. Come in. No questions. I trust you. She walked past him without a word, heading straight for the kitchen. He followed, watching her unpack. Are those empanadas? Homemade. Don't get excited. They're not from me, but they're good. He leaned on the counter as she pulled out containers. You brought street food into my penthouse. It's not street food. It's family-run, small batch, and made with way more love than whatever imported olive oil you use. He chuckled under his breath, and she caught the sound but didn't comment. I wanted to do this my way, she said, unwrapping a rice dish. No suits, no wine lists, just food that tastes like something. I'm not complaining. You shouldn't. I also brought dessert. He raised an eyebrow. Baklava from Astoria. You ever had it warm? I've had it imported. Then you haven't had it. They sat on the floor in front of the fireplace, plates balanced on their knees. The skyline glittered through the windows, but neither of them looked at it. Do you still talk to your father? She asked, picking at the edge of her pastry. No, he said simply. He passed 3 years ago. She looked up. I'm sorry. I'm not. Rae waited. He gave me the tools to build a life, but none of the skills to live it. You ever feel like you're still trying to prove something to him? Every day, she nodded. You ever get tired of chasing things you don't even want? His eyes searched hers. I'm starting to. They ate in silence for a beat, the kind of silence that didn't press or push, it just existed. I used to want to be a photographer, Rae said, surprising herself. He looked over at her. What stopped you? Life. Rent. The fact that I couldn't afford a camera that didn't come from a pawn shop. Do you still shoot? I haven't in a while, but I think about it. Every time I see a good shadow or a broken sign or someone laughing too hard on the train. You've got an eye for the unnoticed, she shrugged. Might be the only thing I've always been sure of. He set his plate down. Then why not try again? It's not that simple. I'm not offering a solution. I'm asking why the thing that makes you feel most like yourself is also the one you've let go of. She blinked. Because it's easier to be broke than disappointed. He didn't say anything to that. Instead, he stood, disappeared down the hall, and returned with a small black box. He placed it in front of her, not touching it, not pushing it. She opened it. Inside was a camera. New, compact, professional. She stared at it. This is too much, she whispered. It's not about the price. I didn't ask for this. I know. That's why it matters. She ran her fingers over the lens, then looked up at him. You don't get to fix me. I'm not trying to. I'm giving you a tool. What you do with it is yours, she swallowed. You're not what I expected either. What did you expect? Someone who would buy the world but never offer a piece of it. He sat beside her again, closer this time. I never expected to give anyone a piece of mine. The fire crackled beside them, casting gold across his face. You know I can't promise anything, she said quietly. I'm still figuring things out. I'm not asking for promises, he replied. I'm asking for honesty. And time? I can do that. He reached for her hand, not aggressively, just enough for her to know he was there. When she didn't pull away, he laced their fingers together. I've never wanted to be seen before, he said. Not really. You're not easy to look at, I'm learning. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Don't start building expectations. I won't, he said. But I'm building something. We both are. They stayed there until the fire burned low, the plates forgotten, the city outside pressing against the glass but never quite reaching them. 3 months later, Rae stood in a gallery in Brooklyn, a camera around her neck and her photographs framed on the walls. They weren't polished, they weren't perfect, but they were hers. Kellan stood beside her, his hand in hers, suit jacket open, eyes proud but quiet. Someone asked her how she met him. She glanced up at him, then back at the curious stranger. I found something he lost, she said. And it turned out I was exactly where I was meant to be. He didn't say anything. He just kissed the top of her head, right there in the middle of the gallery, in front of everyone. And for the first time in either of their lives, neither of them wanted to be anywhere else. It was raining when Rae crossed the cobblestone courtyard of the old decommissioned library in Tribeca. The building had been converted into an event space for high-end galas, and tonight it gleamed with golden uplighting that reflected off the wet pavement. She tightened the belt of her rust-colored wrap dress and ducked under the overhang, holding her camera close to her chest. She wasn't here to take photos. Not tonight. Tonight she was the guest. Inside, the room was hushed elegance walls lined with books behind glass, vaulted ceilings lit with crystal chandeliers, and rows of tables dressed in deep navy linens and low arrangements of wildflowers. Waiters in black gloves moved like shadows between them, offering flutes of champagne and miniature hors d'oeuvres. Kellan stood near the far end, deep in conversation with the city's deputy housing commissioner and the head of a local nonprofit. He was in a dark suit with a silver tie, his expression attentive but distant, The way he always looked when his mind was 10 steps ahead of the room. When he saw her, his posture shifted. He stepped away from the group without excuse or hesitation. "You came," he said, resting a hand gently at the small of her back. She tilted her face up. "You invited me. I wasn't sure you'd want to be part of this. I want to be wherever you are." A quiet breath left him, and his hand stayed where it was, warm and grounding as if it belonged there. The gala was the official announcement of a new housing initiative one Kellan had spent months negotiating behind closed doors. He was donating an entire building, one of the half-finished developments Rae had once seen in those black and white photos, to be converted into affordable artist housing. The city had agreed to match the funding. No headlines, no press conference, just action. "This building," she said, her fingers brushing his, "it's the one you said was stalled, isn't it? The permits finally came through. It'll be done by spring. And the artists, it's already being curated. Photographers, painters, sculptors, all of them under 35, all of them independent. They'll live and work there for free for 2 years." She looked at him, something stirring in her chest that went deeper than pride. "You did this quietly? I didn't want it to be about me." Her voice was quieter now. "But you did it because of me." He nodded once. "You reminded me that not everything worth building comes with a return." The music shifted as dinner was announced. People began moving toward their seats, but Rae pulled him aside before he could follow. "I have something for you," she said, reaching into the clutch tucked beneath her arm. She handed him a small envelope. Inside was a photograph, one she'd taken herself a few weeks ago. It showed the rooftop garden, captured at dusk, with the city behind it and tiny strings of lights casting soft halos across the herbs. But the focus wasn't the garden. It was Kellan, standing with his hands in his pockets, head tilted slightly to the side, caught in a rare moment of stillness. He stared at it longer than she expected. "I don't remember you taking this. I didn't ask first. It's me." His voice was quiet, but there was something else in it, a kind of reverence. "It's who you are when you're not trying to be anything." He looked at her then, and his hands framed her face before she could say another word. "I love you," he said, like it had been waiting behind his ribs for too long. "Not because you see me, not because you challenge me. I love you because with you I'm not performing, I'm real." Her eyes didn't leave his. "I love you too, because you didn't try to fix me. You just stood with me while I figured out how to fix myself." His mouth met hers then, slow and certain, not rushed or hungry, but deliberate like a promise wrapped in warmth and Rain's slicked breath. Everything else, the music, the clinking glasses, the echo of footsteps on marble faded until all that remained was the feel of his lips and her fingers curling into the fabric of his jacket. When they broke apart, neither of them moved away. "Come live with me," he said. Her eyes widened just slightly. "I'm not asking you to give anything up," he continued. "Bring your camera, bring your mess, bring whatever you want, just bring you." She didn't answer with words. She reached for his hand and laced their fingers together. 3 weeks later, Rae stood barefoot in the middle of the penthouse kitchen, laughing as Kellan fumbled with a corkscrew and sent the cork flying across the room. The marble counters were still cold, but now they were cluttered with her coffee mugs, her notebooks, and a bowl of lemons that had no real purpose. Her framed photographs leaned against the wall, waiting to be hung. The rooftop garden had string lights now, not the neat designer ones. The tangled, mismatched kind she'd picked out. And in the corner, next to the mint, was a new planter box. It held nothing but soil and a small handwritten tag that read, "For whatever grows next." Kellan walked in holding 2 glasses and set one beside her. "You know," she said, "this place feels warmer now." He kissed her temple. "That's because it's not mine anymore, it's ours." Outside, the city hummed its usual lullaby of horns and wind and distant music. Inside, they danced badly, barefoot and smiling, spilling a little wine, knocking over a vase and laughing loud enough that the neighbors might have heard. But neither of them cared. Because for the first time they weren't building for anyone else, they were home. Together. and it was exactly where they were meant to be.